All right, he says we're good. So this is going to be our first time back on Facebook Live. So if you are watching on Facebook, welcome to Radcliffe Christian Church. Happy Mother's Day. I am not the pastor of the church. Currently, we do not have a pastor. So we're in a very unique position. We have several different people from our church. We have our elders, and we've had some guest ministers to come in and do the service for us. And it's just been very interesting to see how our church has come together, and that everyone has been a part of helping our church to grow and get back on its feet. So we are so happy to be back on Facebook. It's been quite a while since we've been on there. So my hope for you, my blessing for you, hopefully, is that from this sermon you will get some peace, some hope, and some comfort from it. The communion hymn that we did was called "I Have a Mother." And if you, and those, of course, on Facebook did not get to see that, but there were women singing, talking about, we have a mother there, and they were referring to God. So we're going to talk about God as our mother. And for some people, this is very controversial because we grew up with the references to God being our Father. And so I want to talk about that today and the history behind that and how it is okay for us to also refer to God as our mother. So just to start us off, I want to tell you a couple little short stories here. There was one mother who said, "The joy of motherhood is what a woman experiences when all the children are finally in bed." Okay. A mother talking to an old college friend said, "Remember before I was married, I had 3 theories about raising children? Well, now I have 3 children and no theories." So if you haven't guessed by now, and by all the glaring advertisements from the stores, today is, of course, Mother's Day. It is a day that brings joy to many and heartache to just as many. One woman that I know personally who is a mother told me that she hates Mother's Day. Another woman I know who is also a mother told me that she wished that Mother's Day did not exist. So you're probably thinking, this is a very strange way to begin a Mother's Day sermon. Where's the stuff about how mothers nurture their children and are always giving of themselves in order for their families to thrive? Well, I'll get to that, but I think we need to know the background of Mother's Day first, and I thought this was very interesting. Anna Jarvis of Philadelphia, whose mother had organized women's groups to promote friendship and health, originated Mother's Day. On May the 12th, 1907, exactly 117 years ago today, she held a memorial service at her late mother's church in Grafton, West Virginia. Within 5 years, virtually every state was observing the day, and in 1914, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson made it a national holiday. Although Jarvis had promoted the wearing of a white carnation as a tribute to one's mother, the custom developed of wearing a red or pink carnation to represent a living mother or a white carnation for a mother who was deceased. Over time, the day was expanded to include others, such as grandmothers and aunts who played mothering roles. Okay, so far so good. What had originally been primarily a day of honor became associated with the sending of cards and the giving of gifts, however. And in protest against its commercialization, Jarvis spent the last years of her life trying to abolish the holiday she had brought into being. And I relate this history to you even as just 2 days ago, I was at my mother's house and I gave her a card and I gave her a gift. And I am very okay with that. But she became very troubled with how things were being commercialized, just as we become troubled when Christmas becomes so commercialized. And so, these things aren't bad, but it does help me understand why some may not really like Mother's Day. It becomes more of an obligation to some rather than a genuine honoring of what mothers do and represent. So on this Mother's Day, I do want us to honor our mothers and all they have done for us, because they do nurture us and they do give so much of themselves. There are many women in my life who have helped me to develop into who I am as a woman today. But I want us to show that honor in a way that also respects the fact that not everyone has a good relationship with his or her mother, and sometimes mothers aren't good to their children. There are also women who have wanted desperately to be mothers and were never able to have children. That tends to get ignored or overlooked, and we want this occasion to be a special one without pouring salt into a wound. I had a very difficult time writing this sermon. And in fact, if you haven't noticed, usually I do an outline and I feel like I'm talking more to you and just going from the outline. I was not able to do that this time. This time I do what some of the others, I have this completely written out because I want to make sure that I get across the message that I'm wanting to get across. And one of the reasons this was very difficult, and this just, it wasn't anyone's fault, it just happened this way. A couple of weeks ago, Louise had contacted me and said we were supposed to have an actual guest minister for today, and that they had to cancel. And so asked me if I would do that, and I thought, oh boy, okay, I get to do the Mother's Day sermon? Okay, we'll see how this goes. Plus, even though my mother is still with us, but of course, as most of you know, my father passed away a few months ago. So I wrote this with the mindset of I now have one parent who is gone. And then, excuse me, the parent that I still have is the one that we're celebrating today. So this Mother's Day was difficult, but it's also extra special for me because it's like I'm clinging to the parent that I still have. So with all of this in mind, I'd like for us to turn our attention to God, who is to be honored first and foremost, and his attributes as a mother. I grew up hearing God always referred to in the masculine, so I've always seen him as Father. God is spirit and has no gender, but since we humans comprehend gender better, we need to give him one. But I don't think it's out of line with the Bible to refer to him in the feminine as well as the masculine. He is both our father and our mother. And it may sound radical, but it's not really a new concept. So let's take a look at the different ways that God is our mother. I was reading an essay from a fundamentalist pastor who said that basically it was blasphemous to refer to God as female or as a mother. He acknowledged that God has motherly attributes, but claims that that does not make God also a mother. I disagree. We need to remember that God made all of humanity in his image, both male and female. Both are fully together in this image of God. So we're going to take a look, first of all, at Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. It says, so God created humans in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So very often when we speak of God's love, fathers get the spotlight because we have been taught to see God as strictly a father. Again, this isn't bad. We have a day set aside for our fathers as well, and at this moment I'm grieving the loss of my own father because there was a lot of love in that relationship. But when we read something like Genesis 1:27, it takes both genders to understand the fullness of who God is. Even Moses reminds God in Numbers 11:12 that God is the one who conceived them, when we're talking about them, the Israelites, gave birth to them, carried them, and nursed them. So it says, did I conceive all this people? Did I give birth to them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries a suckling child? Okay. And is that, Okay, I'll go on. Okay. All right, so anyway, it's talking about how, it's showing God as giving birth, carrying them, nursing them, just like mothers would. So let's go ahead and look at some other biblical references to God and Jesus as mother. Matthew chapter 23, verse 37 says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. Okay, so Jesus uses a simile here. And if any of you remember from your literature classes, and I had to put this in here because I taught English for so many years, a simile is a comparison between two unlike things using the words like or as. And Jesus here compares himself to a mother hen. And although he was born a male and had to operate within a male-dominated society, he found this analogy of a mother's care to be the best description of him in this situation. Then we have Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 11, where it says, "As an eagle stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, as it spreads its wings, takes them up, and bears them aloft on its pinions, the Lord alone guided him. No foreign god was with him." So here God is guiding, and just like this mother eagle was guiding. Then we have Psalm 22, verses 9 and 10. "Yet it was you who took me from the womb. You kept me safe on my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God." So God is, in this instance, is being compared to a midwife, caring for the child that's been delivered. Then we have Isaiah 49, verses 14 and 15. "But Zion said, 'The Lord has forsaken me. My Lord has forgotten me.' Can a woman forget her nursing child or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these might forget, yet I will not forget you." And again, God's attributes are being compared to a woman's. God will not forsake us any more than a woman would forget her nursing child and forsake them. Then we have Hosea 13:8. "I will fall upon them like a bear robbed of her cubs, and will tear open the covering of their heart. There I will devour them like a lion, as a wild animal would mangle them." So here God is experiencing anger, and it's the type of anger that a mother bear would have. She's been robbed of her cubs, and of course she's going to be very angry about that. So what do these verses tell you about the motherly attributes of God? Does this change how you view your own mother? How can you use these to influence the way you are a mother, or that you are a nurturer? Because, I am not a biological mother, but I have lots of children that I deal with each day, so I do take on that nurturing role. Feminine images and language for God are found both in the Jewish and Christian scriptures. Julian of Norwich, a 14th century female theologian, wrote, "As truly as God is our Father, so truly God is our mother." In the 20th century, Pope John Paul I said, "God is our Father, even more, God is our mother." God makes himself, herself, known to us in many ways. And one of those ways is through our mothers. When our mothers carry us in the womb, so too does God carry us, and he does it throughout our lives. When we're quite small, our mommies provide security for us. So does our Heavenly Mother. Mamas kiss injuries and comfort us so we'll feel better, and our Heavenly Mother also comforts us through our trials. Moms warn us of danger, and so does our Heavenly Mother. Our moms always seem to know everything before it even happens, and of course so does our mother, capital M. God doesn't have a physical body, so she depends on mothers to be her arms, hands, legs, and feet. Mothers should provide that care and nurturing. Sometimes, though, when we don't have good relationships with our mothers, that means that there was a human breakdown in the connection. God will many times get the blame, but it was the boots on the ground that fell short. God has given ample examples in the Bible of how mothers should practice their motherhood, because God did it first. Mothers just have to be willing to be partners with God in this difficult journey. So here are some examples of biblical women who experienced adversities in motherhood. And actually, as I was watching the trivia questions scroll, we have trivia questions that scroll before the beginning of the service, and these women were mentioned, so all the women of the Bible. So we have Eve, and she was the first mother who lost one child at the hands of another. We have Rebecca, who is Isaac's wife, and she struggled with favoritism of her son Jacob over Esau. We also have Jochebed, who is a caring mother who had to give up her son Moses in order to save him. Relationships between mothers and their children don't have to be perfect. God is always present even through the tough times. Caring for children can be exhausting, frustrating, and overwhelming, and I understand that, having to deal with other people's children. I can't imagine how much more so it would be with you, having your own children. But God is being our mother, even as we're working to try to be a good mother to our children. Of course, Mary, Jesus' mother, is a great biblical example of not only the wondrous things that happened, how she accepted her role as mother when she found out that she was pregnant, and the birth in the barn, but also the struggles as the mother of God's Son. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, talks about how her relationship with Jesus and her trust in God's promise to her allowed her to go to Jesus at a wedding in Cana to remedy a problem with the wine running out. In Mark chapter 3, verses 1 through 6, and then verses 21 and 31, Jesus is challenging the status quo by healing on the Sabbath. So his family plans to go get him because they think he's lost his mind, and it's Mary who shows up with Jesus' brothers. In John chapter 19, verses 25 through 27, she witnesses Jesus' crucifixion and, of course, is overcome with grief and confusion. So we don't have pristine, perfect examples of motherhood in the Bible, and we can expect that ours won't be pristine either, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm not a biological mother, but one of my colleagues told me that I'm more of a mother to my students than some parents are. That was a flattering and also a disturbing compliment. But even without actually being a mother, I know that being a parent has to be the most difficult job anyone could take on, whether it's through biological means, whether you have adopted a child, or you have what they like to call a bonus child, which would be a stepchild. It's not about being perfect. Mary certainly wasn't. It's about keeping your eyes on God, staying connected to him, her, and doing the best you can with what you've been given. Talking about God as being a mother also can help provide that connection and help a woman feel like she has a kindred spirit, rather than God being a father from afar watching all of the woman's decisions play out. But didn't Jesus say to pray to God as Father? Isn't that a part of the model prayer? I actually did a sermon on that a while back. Jesus' reference to God as a father is the metaphor that he used for his time. Even then, that was a very personal metaphor, but it's not a physical or a biological description. It's just one image. We have many images of God. It's just that over time in church tradition, we've elevated some and minimized others. Even in the Bible, as time went on, later writers depicted more of a male role, which reflected the time they lived in. But that was more of a reflection of the early church, rather than what Jesus actually said and did. So at this point, some of you are like, yeah, I get it. There's, I don't see the controversy here. And there might be some other people, maybe some people online who might be squirming a little bit at this point, because hearing God referred to as Heavenly Mother and she was strange to my own ears at one point. And if it makes you really uncomfortable, you don't have to refer to God as she. Keep using he. Whichever reference makes you feel the most connected to God. I want to try to use them interchangeably, not to cause confusion, but to gently remind myself that God represents all of us. So I want images in my mind that reflect that. Now let's go back to my earlier comments about Mother's Day. If you don't have a good relationship with your mother, my wish for you is that you are able to find some good memory to hold on to and know that although your relationship with your earthly mother may not be or was not the best, you have a heavenly mother who loves you like no other. If your mother is no longer here with us, I hope you find comfort in wonderful memories of her today. If you are fortunate to still have your mother here and you also have a good relationship with her, I hope that you are able to spend quality time with her and make those wonderful memories that you will always cherish. To every woman in here, whether you are a mother or someone who has nurtured others as a mother does, I wish you a happy Mother's Day and many blessings from your heavenly mother, who modeled through Jesus what mothers should be. All right, so that's why we do what we do. Right there, it's represented in those children. So anytime I have a frustrating day, and I've been dealing with sixth graders all day long, and at the end I'm like, ooh, but then one comes up to me and says, "You have a good weekend, Miss Preston," or "I love your class, Miss Preston." No, that's why we do what we do. To close out, I found this poem by Miriam Therese Winter, and I just thought it was such a pretty poem and just a great way to wrap things up. It says, "God our Mother, living water, river of mercy, source of life, in whom we live and move and have our being, who quenches our thirst, refreshes our weariness, bathes and washes and cleanses our wounds, be for us always a fountain of life, and for all the world a river of hope springing up in the midst of the deserts of despair." So may the Lord bless and keep you until we meet again. We would love for you to stay for refreshments and just socialize and just enjoy this beautiful day that we have. God bless you all.